Reviews, and this is my review for Marvel's Disney Plus show Hawkeye Season 1. Now, if you are wondering why I'm posting a video on December 26th and I'm wearing this hat, well, then clearly you haven't seen Hawkeye, because you would know it is a very Christmas-themed show. And if you haven't seen Hawkeye, then you should not be watching this video, as there will be spoilers filled to the brim in this video. If you have not seen up through the end of the first season, then you will not want to watch this video. Alright, so let me go ahead and get into it. And this was probably going to end up being on the short end as far as my MCU Disney Plus shows reviews go. For my WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I certainly had a lot to say. I don't feel like I have a whole ton to say. I'm not going to break it all down. And in the case of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I kind of broke it all down why I really thought it was bad. But in this case, I'm probably not going to break it down as much. So overall, I really quite enjoyed it, much more than I ever expected to. So I came into this series with a similar mindset as I went into Falcon and the Winter Soldier. In both cases, the trailers were very underwhelming, and in fact, I would say that the trailer for Hawkeye wasn't very good. In fact, now that I've seen the series, I would say it's a very ineffective trailer, as opposed to Spider-Man No Way Home, which I think had a very effective trailer. I thought it was very ineffective. It made it look like a crappy, sappy Christmas bullshit piece of crap that I had no interest in watching, and that's not what it ended up being at all. Whereas in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I actually ended up liking it even less than I thought I was going to like it based off of the trailer. It was even worse than I thought it was going to be. But I think it's a good comparison to compare those two, because they're both, they don't have any of the multiverse stuff or crazy magic that turns people into sitcoms and all of that, just crazy stuff. They're much more grounded shows, much more down-to-earth street level shows, I've heard called. So I think that they're a good comparison. And I think that Hawkeye is successful in ways that Falcon and the Winter Soldier failed, most notably the dynamics between the two main characters. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier were supposed to be this buddy cop dynamic. They're supposed to have witty banter, and we're supposed to really laugh at it. It's supposed to be really fun. I didn't feel like these two actors had the same chemistry that is shared between Jeremy Renner and Haley Steinfeld. They are amazing together. The chemistry is palatable, and not just between the actors, but between the characters. The banter between them was much better than the banter between the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I just couldn't really get into most of the time. So this kind of succeeded where Falcon and the Winter Soldier failed, particularly in that aspect, but in many other aspects as well. So I would say that is definitely what I enjoyed most about the show. This was a fun show. I would definitely use the word fun if I was going to pick one word to describe this season. It is fun, and it was a lot of fun. Particularly with those two. Then later on, we bring Florence Pugh as Yelena into the mix. She was the highlight of the Black Widow film. It was great to see her brought in here. We knew she was going to be because of the Black Widow post-credit scene, but one of my favorite scenes of the season is in, I believe it was the 5th episode, penultimate episode, where she goes into Kate's apartment and he's like, "Oh, you want some mac and cheese? Oh, I've got some sriracha here." Like, I don't know. That was a horrible accent. I don't know what kind of accent I just did. Just ignore that. That was a terrible, terrible accent. Just pretend I didn't do that. Okay, so anyways, she does the accent much better. So it was a much better scene than I could ever try to recreate. But I absolutely loved that scene, and she brought in another great dynamic into the show. We have a lot of fun side characters as well. We have Jack Dufresne, who is the swordsman in the comic books. I never really bought him as a villain, especially episode 3 is what sold me on him definitely not being a villain. I was like, he's not a villain. He's a goofy stepdad making goofy stepdad jokes. I mean, he's just a lovable character. And it was really fun to see him come in at the end with his sword and try to help out. Also, the LARPers grew on me. I didn't really like that so much when it first appeared. I think it was the second episode when they first appeared. They kind of grew on me. They were also fun. They added to the fun dynamics of the show. Now, of course, it's not all fun and games. There's some violence. We have the introduction to the MCU. Well, of 2 major players. We have Echo. And I quite enjoyed the episode where they showed us her backstory, and I am interested to see her show when it comes on. But then the other, of course, big character is Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, coming over from the Netflix Daredevil show into the MCU. And I'm just going to tell you up front, no, he's not dead. Come on. I'm slightly annoyed that they kind of left it as if he might be dead. He's definitely not. We didn't see a body. We heard the gunshot, but we didn't see what happened. And I thought this when I very first watched it, but then I went and watched a YouTube video that explained it to me that there's a scene in the comic books that is extraordinarily similar in which Echo shoots Kingpin in the face, point blank, and he ends up going blind. And then I think eventually he ends up fixing his vision and he's fine. So it's clear to me that if they're not doing that exact comic book story, they're doing something very similar. There are 0% chance they're going to bring Vincent D'Onofrio over from the Daredevil show, never have him encounter Daredevil, who we also know is going to be in the MCU, played by Charlie Cox. Never have that encounter and just kill him off immediately. No, there's a 0% chance of that. And I'm slightly annoyed that they led us to believe that. Now, I wish we had gotten a little bit of a tease of his survival in the post-credit scene. I think that would have been a much better use of the post-credit scene. I'll get into that post-credit scene in just a minute here. You're not getting away from me, post-credit scene. But I did want to sort of touch on the finale as a whole. Because I've seen it get a lot of slack. A lot of people are shitting on it. I watched one YouTube channel where they're generally very positive on everything that comes out on Disney Plus, but they kind of trashed this finale. I don't know. I didn't think it was that bad. Like, I thought it was an appropriate finale for this show. It was really fun, but it was also very action-packed. As well. It does get, maybe a little bit dark, but I didn't think that was out of the bounds of the show either. It was a violent show all throughout. So I thought it was a pretty appropriate finale. I think my biggest complaint of the finale, other than the post-credit scene, which I'll still get to, is the resolution with the watch. So first of all, I called it long time ago that was Laura's watch. If you listen to Clint's description of who the watch belonged to, he says it's a friend who's undercover. They're trying to hide this friend's identity. It was like so obvious that it was Laura. Like, to me, it was pretty straightforward. I know other people were like, oh, maybe it's not Laura, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. To me, it was pretty straightforward that it was Laura from the beginning. But what was the point of that watch? It turns out that all it did was it would have revealed Laura's identity as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and Clint wanted to keep that secret. But why exactly did the tracksuit mafia want to get their hands on it? I wasn't really clear on that. It seemed like, I don't know, it just seemed like a roundabout way to let us know that Laura Barton used to be in S.H.I.E.L.D., but I think there could have been better ways for them to convey that information. It was just a little odd to me. But that's really my second biggest complaint of the finale. Otherwise, I thought it was a pretty decent finale for the show. My biggest complaint of the finale is that we get the worst post-credit scene in the history of the MCU. Now, my brother actually posted that very same comment on his Enchantment of Eternity Facebook page, and I 1000% agree with that. My brother and I disagree strongly on Spider-Man No Way Home, but we are on the same page in this. So, you remember that time that I went and watched Ant-Man and the Wasp and sat there for 15 minutes and spent 15 minutes of my life sitting there watching credits go by just so I could see a fucking ant playing the drums? That was 1,000 times better than this. And there's people who love it. People are, oh my god, we got to see the whole musical. That's great. No, it's not great! It was bad enough that we had to suffer through that in the first episode. Now I have to spend 10 minutes of my life watching a bad musical. A bad musical set in a fictional universe. I don't like musicals. I make no secret of that, so that's definitely part of it. But when I look at all of the things that they could have used that post-credit scene for to set up the MCU, the post-credit scenes should be used to set up something for the future of the MCU, to get you excited for something in the future of the MCU. I think, as I alluded to earlier, an ideal way to use that would have been to, in some way, tease that Kingpin is still alive, maybe having a Jack Nicholson from Batman-esque scene with him, give me a mirror, and then his eyes are all fucked up, or whatever. I don't know what it could have been, but something to tease that he's still alive, instead of leaving it, ooh, maybe he's dead, when you know for 100% sure there's no way they're bringing Vincent D'Onofrio onto the show, into the MCU, and then killing him off immediately. There's 0% chance of that. So it's kind of it's kind of stupid that they're trying to leave it ambiguous. So I think that they should have had that as the post-credit scene, or really anything other than what we got. Anything other than that. It was torture, it was terrible, and it does nothing to set up for the future of the MCU. By far the worst post-credit scene in MCU history, and I defy anyone who dares says that it is anything other than the worst post-credit scene ever. Not just the MCU, but any film, TV show, anything ever made. That was such a waste of my time. Anyways, that will probably be my biggest complaint about this show, because otherwise, up until that post-credit scene, I really quite enjoyed this show. It was a lot of fun, and it was much better than I ever expected it to be. So, let me go ahead and give my rating for Hawkeye Season 1 out of 10. 1 would be the lowest possible score. 10, of course, the highest possible score. And out of 10, I'm going to give Hawkeye a solid 8. A very good show. As I've said a couple times already, much better than I thought it would be. And I'm looking forward to the future of Kate Bishop and the MCU. I almost called her Katie Sackhoff for some reason. That's the woman who plays Starbuck. Haley Steinfeld is absolutely fantastic. She crushes this role, and I really look forward to seeing her. And if we don't see her more with Jeremy Renner, then I hope we get to see her more with Yelena. I would love to see the interplay between those two characters carry forward. So, a solid 8, very enjoyable show. Alright, that does it for my review for Marvel's Hawkeye Season 1. If you have not already, please check out my review for all my Marvel content, including my recent review for Spider-Man No Way Home. Please subscribe, hit the like button, hit the little bell for the notifications after you subscribe, do all of that fun stuff. Check out all my other stuff, and I will see you real soon. Goodbye.